Hello everybody and happy Saturday. It is our very first teacher workshop of 2021. I am so happy that you are all here with me today. Today is January 9th, 2021. And yeah, I appreciate y'all being here on this cold, chilly weekend in January. I don't know what part of the state you're in, but we're supposed to have some winter weather tomorrow, so that's kind of exciting for those of us that live in North Texas. That we don't get that very often. So cool. I'm just giving everyone a moment to get logged in right here. We're expecting a pretty large group today. I see someone commenting that they are here with 3 other people. That's fantastic. You can have as many people watching at a time as you want. So welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you that this is your first time joining me on Facebook Live, let me kind of tell you how this works. You're going to participate in today's webinar. You're going to listen and take notes, and you can ask questions if you've got questions. You can make comments if you've got comments. If you need additional information on any of the material we're covering, you can type all of that right there in your chat screen. We're going to try really hard to stay on subject today, so that's important right there. Hey, Debbie and Stacy, hello. So you're going to participate in the webinar today, take lots and lots of notes, and at the end of the webinar today, I'm going to post a link for an online worksheet. And you will click on that link and you will complete your online worksheet. Each person will complete an online worksheet. And you'll submit that, and then I will email you your certificate of completion. There is a $15 fee for 3 hours of training, and if you're participating live today, if you're with me right now, then it's going to count as instructor-led hours with childcare licensing, since you do have the opportunity to interact with me, ask questions, and gain more information about the material that we're covering. If you're watching the recorded video, then that would be self-instructional hours. So welcome all of you that are live. You're meeting those requirements for licensing and instructor-led hours. So that's kind of how that works right there. So there is no need to type in your name on the chat screen or make a list of everyone that's watching right now. I'm going to gather that information from you whenever you submit your online worksheet. So that's how that works, all right? Oh, hey, hello from Laredo, Texas down there. I miss y'all in Laredo. Y'all know that Laredo is one of my most favorite places to go down and train. Y'all are always so awesome and so nice and so thirsty for learning, and you have such a commitment and dedication to early education. The energy that you feel in the room anytime I go down to Laredo is just absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate all of you. So we're, like I said, we got a pretty big group today. This is the topic that we're going to talk about today: understanding cognitive development. Probably one of the most important topics that we can discuss in our early education programs. And, this is what sets us apart from, being glorified babysitters versus an early education facility. And recognizing the impact that we have on young children's lives, and all of the skills that they are learning in the first 5 years of life, all of the skills that we get to encourage, during the first 5 years. This is so incredibly important. We're not just here to watch the kids and keep them safe and maybe have a laugh here and there. But there is so much learning that is going on. And one of the objectives that I have for you today is that I really want y'all to reflect on your current practices. I really want y'all to be open-minded and honest with yourself and really reflect on, how you currently interact with the children, how you currently engage with the children. And I want to program your brain so that, throughout the day, every moment that you're in that classroom, you're thinking about, what is this child learning at this point in time? What new skill is being practiced right now? All right, whether we're potty training and we're toileting, or we're having meal time, or we're outside, or we're in circle time, I really want that brain of yours to start thinking about, what new skill is being practiced, what is that child learning, and how will this child use this new skill for the rest of their life. All right. We are lifelong learners, and the brain is wired to be lifelong learners, but we get to lay the foundation. All right. We get to lay the foundation. The other objective that I have for you today that I really want y'all to think about is, as we go through this material, I really want y'all to be thinking about, a pre and post pandemic classroom. So, think about your practices and how you ran your classroom prior to the pandemic, and what is it going to look like afterwards? And I say that because, we're almost a year into this situation that we're in. And the question that we've been asking for the last 12 months of, how is this pandemic going to change our early education and after school world? Well, there's no question about it, all right? Things are changing, and they will continue to change. The trauma that individuals are experiencing, during this pandemic, the trauma, the loss, all right, the change in the routine, yes, it's going to change a lot about how we manage our classrooms. There's going to be a lot of repair work that we're going to have to do with not only the children, but with ourselves. All right. So, I want you to have an open mind and think about, how you're going to adapt to a post-pandemic world, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. We talked about this a little bit yesterday in our director's workshop. We're not out of the woods. We're nowhere close to being out of the woods. So we got a ways to go before we see any type of normal routine out there. But it's definitely going to change, and we need to be prepared to support the children, to support our coworkers, to support our parents in a post-pandemic world. So keep that in mind as we go through this material also. And I also, as we go through this material today, I challenge you to think about some of the children that you currently have in your classroom, and make some very confidential notes about some of the kids that you are currently caring for and educating. Now, when I say confidential notes, first name, first letter of their last name, and remember that is confidential information that you're not going to share with anyone. But a big part of our job as early educators is to collect anecdotal records, to look at each child and where they're at on a developmental milestone checklist, and to create activities and lessons that will support each individual child and their needs. All right. And so, that's why, again, I want you to use this material today to really reflect on, the kids that you have. And just like, the webinar I did on Thursday on the difference between the boy and the girl brain, you're probably going to have some aha moments today where the light bulb goes off in your own head and you're like, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. Now I get it. Or for some of you, some reminders. You might have heard this information before, but it's good to hear it again. All right. And definitely learn from it. I'm going to give the disclaimer that today we're going to go deep. all right? We're going to go really, really deep into some very serious information. So, your attention and your focus is going to be very important today, all right? Make sure that you've got some paper and pen ready so that you can take lots and lots of notes, all right? And I'm going to try to tell you, I'm going to try to remember to tell you when we come up on material that you're going to see on your online worksheet. So that'll kind of help you out with that, when we get to the end of the day right there. But I want you to take notes on what is important to you. So there is no handout for today's material. I want you to take notes on what is important to you. The main thing is just to focus and to listen, and that's the whole thing with these webinars, is it's very auditory-based learning, all right? So that's kind of, what we're looking at today. I hope y'all are ready because, like I said, I'm excited. I'm actually literally excited about the material that we're going to cover today. It was like going to band camp. All right, I laid in bed last night, barely able to sleep because I was excited about today's webinar. So there you go. Oh yay! Look, we have some first timers. Welcome, Anna. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Something that I also thought about, and Anna being a first timer, kind of made me think about it. I always jump on these webinars and I just dive right in, and I just assume all of you know me and you know who I am. And even yesterday, we had a lot of first timers on our director's workshop yesterday, and I was thinking last night, I should probably introduce myself. Of course, I am Tim. Many of you know me as Tim the trainer. We are going on 1987 to 2021. So what is that? 34 years. 34 years that I have been working in the early education, childcare, after-school world. You can see it with the white that's growing on my face right now. I actually call that COVID white that's growing on my face. So 34 years that I've been working in this industry, starting out in after-school programs, working in an after-school program, taught pre-K for several years, taught kindergarten, and then moved into administration. Was a director for many, many years, was a district manager for a very large childcare organization. I had up to 14 schools that reported to me at one point in time. And then, I've been doing the training and consulting and coaching for a little over 15 years now. I do own and operate 5 absolutely amazing programs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so, I'm in your shoes every single day. When I'm not training, I'm doing something to support the schools. I'm a little bit addicted to work, so I work quite a bit. I love what we do. I'm a huge advocate for early education, the importance of early education. I'm a certified instructor for conscious discipline, so a lot of my trainings have conscious discipline material in it. I can do a full-fledged conscious discipline training for you if you're interested. And I'm also on the board of directors for the Association for Early Learning Leaders, which is a national organization that supports all of you and your professional development and your growth. I'm also a 2-term past president of the Texas Licensed Child Care Association right here in Texas. So just a little bit about who I am. I'm not just some strange guy sitting up here rambling a bunch of information. So, all right, so let's talk about cognitive development and understanding what cognitive development is, all right? So cognitive development refers to children's increasing ability to think, to reason, and to understand, all right? Children's brain develops rapidly during the early childhood years, all right? So during the first 5 years of life, there is a lot of connections that are being made in the brain. When we are born with a lot of cells, brain cells, that are not connected to one another. And throughout cognitive development, throughout learning, those cells start connecting, all right? We actually have more connections in the brain that are formed during the first year of life than the rest of your life, all right? So those of you that are infant teachers, really pay attention to today's webinar because you're making a lot of connections in that infant classroom. But of course, the first 5 years is really what we're going to focus on today, and the number of connections that are being made in that brain. All right, but they're learning. When we talk about the children's ability to think, to reason, and to understand, and that rapidly developing brain. All right. They're learning to expand their memories. All right. Expand their memories. Now, I want y'all to remember, and I'm probably going to repeat a lot of information that I've talked about in previous trainings, but it's important to discuss right here. But keep in mind that children have immature inner speech. So that voice that we have in our head that's constantly talking to us and coaching us and reminding us of stuff, children do not have that voice. What they have are images. All right, and that's why it's so important to have real life pictures in your classrooms, real life pictures of routines and rituals. All right, and that's why we do that, is because when they look at that real life picture, it's going to create that image that they have in their head. That's going to expand their memory. All right, and that's what we want to focus on right there. Increase their power of attention. All right, cognitive development means that we're working to increase their power of attention. Solve problems. We want our children to be problem solvers, but we have to coach that skill. All right, to think symbolically, to employ logic, to predict situations and outcomes. All right, this is something that we're going to use our verbal skills, and we're going to use our language. And we're constantly going to be asking the children, cause and effect. I'm going to talk a lot today about cause and effect, but being able to predict outcome, all right? That's what we want to focus on right there. To understand other people's perspectives, all right? To be able to view the world from other people's point of view. This is such an important cognitive skill that we've got to focus on in the early years, all right? This mainly turns on in the brain, in your toddler 2-year-old classroom. So those of you that are toddler 2-year-old teachers, being able to teach empathy, to be able to teach the children to see the world from other people's point of view, to understand other people's perspectives. That's important right there, and you're going to do a lot of coaching on that particular skill. All right, and then, like I said, to understand cause and effect. All right, so we're going to talk a lot about the brain today. So cognitive development refers to what's happening inside of the brain and the learning that is taking place. So I thought I would start off this morning, again, just with a little lesson on, what is going on inside of our brain and how our brain is divided, all right? So, we have left brain and we have right brain. And cognitive development is developing the left side of the brain, all right? So left side of your brain is your logic, all right? That's your very black and white. This is the rules, concrete thinking. Your right side of your brain is your creative side of your brain. So this is where we're going to have fun, we're going to dance, we're going to sing, we're carefree, we're spirited. That's your right side of the brain, okay? A lot of the things that we're going to talk about today is being able to wire the brain to be flexible and to be lateral, all right? And what that means is giving the children the connections and the skills to be able to switch from left brain to right brain at the appropriate time. They have to be able to go back and forth, all right, depending on what's going on throughout the day, All right. Now, those of you that might have participated in my webinar on Thursday when we talked about boys and girls, girls tend to stay over on the left side of the brain. Boys tend to stay more on the right side of the brain. But girls are better, females are better at being flexible and being able to switch back and forth. All right, it's actually pretty difficult for the male brain to go back and forth on that side of the brain. So again, we're going to talk a lot about how to lend those skills and to coach those skills because that's pretty important right there. All right, so that's just a little. We're going to talk more about brain development as we go on. All right, in the early childhood years, cognitive development is the process of growth and change and intellectual abilities. During this time, from birth to age 5, children make rapid advances in how they process, how they store, and how they use information gained from observing and interacting with the world around them. All right? So, again, I had asked y'all to really do some reflecting and thinking back on your current practices and children in your classroom and your engagement. I really want y'all to start paying attention to how children observe the world around them and how children interact with the world around them. All right? That's going to give you the information you need so that you can support them and engage them, all right? You got to reach them before you can teach them. That's what I like to say, all right? And, not only when we say you got to reach them before you can teach them, of course, getting to know the child, getting to know their likes and interests so that you can form that relationship with them, that's very important, but also observing and how they interact, how they process the world around them is very important for you, all right? Our current understanding of cognitive development is that children enter the world wired to learn, all right? It is not necessary to motivate infants to learn. They were born wanting to learn. Our brain is wired to crave knowledge, all right? Our brain is wired to crave new ideas and new challenges, all right? We're born with that, okay? So you don't have to motivate that right there. Your job as an early educator is to encourage children's drive to learn, all right? So you're going to be the encourager. You're going to be the driver, the coach. Y'all might notice in a lot of my trainings I use the word coach instead of teach, all right? Because, I want you to do a comparison of how we interact in a classroom versus how a coach interacts with their players and how a coach strengthens their players' skills and abilities, all right? So we're going to drive that craving for learning while we're in the classroom. We're going to introduce new ideas, we're going to introduce new challenges, but then we're going to be encouragers. And we want the children to be hungry for learning, all right? Not to get too far ahead of myself, but later on in the presentation, we're going to talk about play, and we're going to talk about executive functions and self-regulation. And we've had a very, very steady decline in the ability to self-regulate over the last 30 years. And there's some amazing research that is out there on why we are seeing such a decline in self-regulation and executive functions. Well, one of it is children becoming complacent, all right? Meaning they're sitting still doing nothing, all right? And they're not getting out there and they're not playing and they're not creating and they're not exploring, all right? They're very sedentary and they're just sitting still and the brain starts idling, all right? And when the brain starts idling, no connections are being made, all right? So, I want y'all, again, when I talk about reflecting on your current practices, reflecting on your classroom, how much idle time do you have? Or are you keeping those kids going? All right, keeping them engaged, keeping that learning flowing, those connections are building. All right, so there you go. I'm going to repeat what I just said because, hint, hint, worksheet question. All right, our current understanding of cognitive development is that children enter the world wired to learn. It is not necessary to motivate infants to learn. They are born wanting to learn. All right, so our job, and here's your worksheet question, our job is to encourage children's drive to learn. All right, we want them to be lifelong learners. In 2000, the National Research Council and the Institute of Medicine of the National Academies published the landmark book From Neurons to Neighbors, and it is the science of early childhood development. There's been a lot of expansions on this, since this was published. But this particular book really focused on the importance of 4 essential aspects of learning for young children. So if you're taking notes right now, I would recommend that you write this down. Once again, you're probably going to see this on your worksheet later today. But what are the 4 essential aspects of learning for young children? First thing right here is loving and caring relationships with adults. All right, loving and caring relationships with adults. That's the first essential aspect of learning. I talk about this one a lot in my workshops. Y'all hear me focus on this one a lot. When you are in a relationship with someone, you are more willing to meet expectations. All right. So the relationship and the connection that you have with those kids is so incredibly important. And it's also important that it is a healthy relationship. So, like they said, loving and caring relationships with adults. Y'all have heard me talk in a couple of my different workshops, and I've got a workshop coming up in the future that we're going to really dig deep into this. But what it means to be a healthy attachment figure. And every child, every human is born, and their brain is wired to have an attachment figure. And that is a person that you go to when the world doesn't go your way. And even as adults, a lot of you have that one person that, when the world is not going your way, you can go to, and they love you unconditionally. They make you feel safe. They nurture you. All right. They understand you. That's a healthy attachment figure right there. And every person needs someone. All right, that they can go to make them feel safe when the world is not going their way. All right. Now, typically, in a textbook situation, the parent, the mother, is typically the healthy attachment figure. All right, for multiple different reasons. But what we've been seeing a lot of, especially over the last 10 years, is that the early childhood educator, you are becoming the healthy attachment figure. You are the loving and caring adult that the child goes to when the world is not going their way. So, being there for your kids is so incredibly important, all right? Just your presence is important to these kids. And if you want to learn a little bit more about this now, I have a webinar on my website called What Happens When Employees Call In Sick. Isn't that a fun title? But I talk about, when the early educator is not present in the classroom, when you're not there, the social and emotional impact that has on the children. All right, so that's what that webinar is all about. Maybe I was trying to do a little bit of a guilt trip to get people to come to work. But anyways, it's a good webinar that kind of goes into that healthy attachment figure. And when you do become the healthy attachment figure for that child and you're not there, it could create trauma. So we want to avoid that right there. So the four essential aspects of learning. The first one, loving and caring relationships with the adult. All right. The second is many opportunities to explore the world through seeing, touching, hearing, tasting, and smelling. All right. So basically sensory. All right. And in your early childhood classrooms, you want to include as many sensory-based learning opportunities as possible. I would challenge you to try to tie in seeing, touching, hearing, tasting, and smelling into any activity that you do with your kids. All right? And you're going to talk about this. All right? You're going to talk to the kids and ask questions, expand that curiosity. But that sensory processing is very important to their cognitive development. All right? So there you go. I see a comment right here. Karen is agreeing with me. Absolutely agreeing with me. I love it when you use those words. And so it's really going to benefit the children right there. Now, I have a whole webinar that I have done. If you go back to the webinar I did on supporting children with special needs, or supporting children with signs and symptoms of a special need, because in our early childhood world, a lot of the children that we work with have signs and symptoms of a special need that have not been diagnosed yet. The majority of the children we work with have not been diagnosed yet because they're not old enough to be diagnosed, or there's not enough indicators to make that diagnosis. So, we tend to work with a lot of kids that have not been diagnosed. Sensory is important in these situations, and you may run into a situation where a child has sensory processing disorders, all right? And I talk about sensory processing disorders in that one particular webinar, supporting children with special needs. So you might want to add that one to your bucket list of videos to watch later on, all right? But either way, the sensory processing is important, all right? The third essential aspect of learning for young children is conversation and language richness in the environment, all right? So conversation and language richness in the environment. So in your classroom, all right, you're going to have a lot of conversations. Y'all should be hoarse by the time you leave every day, because all day long you're asking questions, you're challenging the children, you're engaging the children, you're singing to the kids, you're talking non-stop throughout the day. And that's what we want to see in your early childhood classrooms, is that conversations with the children, all right? And not only that, but the enrichment of the classroom. So a lot of labeling, all right? A lot of real life pictures with labeling. So that's important for you right there. But the main thing is that we want to encourage conversation. Now, I'm not going to talk a whole lot today about social development. We are going to talk about it, but I could literally spend 6 hours just talking about social development, and that's going to be a future teacher workshop that we're doing here on Facebook Live. But when we're starting to see a lot of children, again, for obvious reasons, that are lacking those social skills and have an inability to have a conversation with another human. All right. Overexposure to screen time is a big cause of this. All right. So once again, one of the many reasons why the American Pediatric Association, discourages screen time for children under the age of 2, and children over the age of 2, it's limited to 1 hour a day, because they're interacting more with the screen than they are other humans. And we want to coach that skill and support that skill of having conversations with the other children in the classroom and having conversations with the adults. the more we can support children's ability to have conversations, the better they're going to be at problem solving. All right? The more we can support and encourage conversations with other children, the more empathy is going to be developed. All right? So again, when we talk about, the decline in self-regulation, this decline in the ability to have conversations is a big part of that as well. All right? And the fourth essential aspect of learning for young children is play. All right? Pretty easy one right there, play. And we're going to talk about the second half of this webinar is going to be really, really focused on supporting children and play, all right, because that is so incredibly important. So I'm going to repeat these for you one more time so that you can write them down, make sure you got them. The four essential aspects of learning for young children: loving and caring relationships with adults, many opportunities to explore the world through seeing, touching, hearing, tasting, and smelling, conversation and language richness in the environment, and play. All right. So, I refer to a lot of the previous webinars that we have done, because there's so much material here to cover. I talked about the supporting children with special needs so that you can hear more about the sensory processing disorders. I also have a webinar that I just recently did on engagement techniques, so that's going to help you with that conversation piece of it. And then I have a webinar coming up on March 6th, so mark your calendars, on the power of play. So we'll really, really dig deeper into the importance of play on that webinar on March 6th. All right? So let's talk now about gaining cognitive skills. All right? Gaining cognitive skills. So young children are active learners who use all of their senses to interact with the people and the objects in their world. Through active exploration in context of loving relationships, young children begin to learn what their world is like and how to make associations, compare and contrast, and to categorize. All right, so once again, those senses. Children need adults to support their learning and to guide them to higher levels of thinking and reasoning. All right? And what you're going to do, and by the way, worksheet question. Children need adults to support their learning and to guide them to higher levels of thinking and reasoning through. You're going to model, okay? So you're a role model to the kids. And so you're constantly going to be modeling the expectations that you're looking for, all right? You're going to be that role model for them. And not only are you going to model the expectation that you're looking for, but you're going to verbalize it too. You're going to put it in words. I'm walking over to the sink just like this so that I can wash my hands and keep everyone healthy. I'm washing my hands just like this, all right? I'm putting soap on my hands and rubbing it together for 20 seconds. Now I'm putting my hands under the water, all right? So you're modeling and explaining, Remember I told you that, you're going to be hoarse at the end of the day right there, all right? Again, children need adults to support their learning and guide them to higher levels of thinking and reasoning through modeling, questioning, all right? You're going to ask a lot of questions to the children. This is payback time. Payback time to those of you working in a pre-K classroom. Y'all know in a pre-K, 3-year-old, 4-year-old classroom, the children are always like, why? They question you on everything. Well, you get to turn this around. Now I'm going to start questioning you, all right? You went up the slide. Instead of sliding down, you went up the slide just like this. Okay? Why did you go up the slide just like this? All right? And it's not that you're trying to discipline them or make them feel like they're in trouble, but you're questioning their logic. All right? You went up the slide just like this. Tell me why you chose to go up the slide instead of down the slide. They might have a really good answer for you, but you're going to be questioning them, all right, constantly. Another way that you're going to guide them to higher levels of thinking and reasoning with exploration. Okay, you want to challenge their curiosity. All right, challenge their curiosity. Make them curious about the world around them. Science. We don't do enough science activities with young children. This is one of the best ways to create curiosity and have that exploration in place right there. But you're going to plant some objects and some activities around your classroom that you're not going to tell the children about, and you're going to challenge them to find these things and to explore. All right, that's what we want right there. All right, and then experimentation. All right, we want them to experiment. We want them to try new things, and we're going to be that encourager. Okay. So again, the 4 different ways that we're going to guide children to a higher level of thinking and reasoning: modeling, questioning, exploration, and experimentation. All right? So you're a tour guide. I want y'all to kind of think of yourselves as a tour guide in your classroom. Think of yourself as that coach, like I said, that coach and how they challenge their players to learn new skills and to expand their skills. And you are a challenger in that classroom. All right, so what and how children learn during the first 5 years of their lives lay the foundation for successful lifelong learners, okay? So you get to create the blueprint for learning, all right? Their success in public school or higher education is going to be based on the first 5 years of life. This is so critical for people to understand. So, once again, when we talk about how incredibly important early education is for our children and how incredibly important it is that we do it right, all right, it's because you're laying the foundation for successful lifelong learning, all right? We've got now almost 40 years of research that supports this, that the way children learn, the way children play in the first 5 years of life creates that successful lifelong learning. All right, very impactful. So again, when we talk about what is the difference between being a glorified babysitter and being an early educator, a proud early educator, all right, it's that you're creating that foundation for lifelong learning. All right, so if you ever doubt that your job is not important, that this is not just a job, this is a career, and anyone that is working at an early education program and thinking that this job is just a stepping stone, or this is just a job and I'm trying to get a paycheck with my hourly rate, all right, this should be a big awakening for you. All right, you have, in my opinion, probably the most important job out there. All right, I put early educators up on the same pedestal as doctors and scientists and those people of that level, because look at what you're doing, your interactions, your engagement, all right, your classroom is laying the foundation for the rest of their lives. Don't ever think you're not important. All right. Children become confident learners when adults encourage their discoveries and explorations. And this is why I say so often that confident teachers create confident children. All right? If you are a confident teacher, you're going to create confident learners. All right? If you're not confident in your abilities and your skills, you're going to have some challenges. You're going to have some challenges. All right? So, there you go. Sorry, I'm just reading something that someone's typing right here. No, Facebook Live is the only venue to watch this video right now. So this is the only platform that I'm using is Facebook Live. But as many people can watch as needed. You can have as many people in your audience as needed right there. So hopefully that answers Valerie's question right there. And yes, this is being recorded, so anyone that is missing today's video will be able to catch it later on. All right? And the degree of cognitive learning in the early childhood years is dramatic, all right? So, is this easy? No, it's not easy. Is the degree of cognitive learning dramatic? Absolutely it is, all right? So basically what we're going to talk about now is there are 9 categories of gaining cognitive skills that we're going to talk about. All right. Now I want to back up just a second. I got sidetracked just a little bit. And it's okay. It's not your fault, Valerie. A bird flies by the window and I get distracted. So, don't worry about it. But we were talking about creating the blueprint for successful lifelong learning. And of course, what and how children learn during the first 5 years of their lives, that creates the foundation for lifelong learning. I wanted to back up just a little bit and also remind you about the blueprint for social and emotional development. Now, again, this is kind of a whole different webinar that we do, but I just wanted to do a really brief reminder. The blueprint for social and emotional development is created from the 3rd trimester of pregnancy to the age of 2. All right, so it's a little bit different than cognitive skills. Gaining cognitive skills is 0 to 5. That blueprint for social and emotional development is 3rd trimester of pregnancy to the age of 2. All right. And so kind of keep that in mind right there. So, and we want to focus on the right brain, all right, the creative side of the brain. So this is why, I tell, ladies, whenever you're pregnant, if it's your first child especially, all of your books that you read, what to expect when I'm expecting and all of these Dr. Spock books and everything. It's okay to read those during the 1st and 2nd trimester. When you get to the 3rd trimester, put the books down, all right? And that 3rd trimester of pregnancy, you need to be dancing and you need to be singing and you need to be, having some creative expression. All right, so a painting or, whatever it is that you do to express yourself creatively. But that's what that 3rd trimester should be all about, because when a mother is pregnant in her 3rd trimester, the more creative she is, all right, that right side of the brain and with the fetus is going to develop more. So that is so incredibly important, for right brain development, because it starts in the 3rd trimester. Okay. All right. So there you go. Kelly, I apologize. I should have addressed this at the beginning of the webinar, but it looks like Kelly's having some technical issues. There's not much I can do about that. It is the world that we're living in right now. My recommendation on technical issues is to make sure that all other windows or applications on your device are closed. So whether you're watching this on a phone or a tablet or a computer, make sure that there's nothing else running in the background. You don't have other websites open. but the only thing that's open is Facebook, and that's going to help you have a smooth video feed. But when you've got other applications running in the background, or you've got other web pages that you're browsing on, that definitely slows down the speed of the feed right there. So definitely always recommend that everything is closed on your device except for this particular application, and that seems to help out quite a bit. All right. All right, so again, those of you that are taking notes today, get ready for some note taking, but we're going to talk about the 9 categories in gaining cognitive skills, all right? So here we go. The 9 categories for gaining cognitive skills. The first one is the skill of inquiry, all right? The skill of inquiry. This is basically creating that curiosity that we've talked about already. And so with the skill of inquiry, all right, children listen to others, and we want to encourage and support children listening to others. But again, we don't want to do this in a shameful way. When we encourage children to listen to others, we don't want to do it like stop, listen to her, all right? That's going to make it as if it's punishment, all right? But through your support and your encouragement and you modeling active listening, all right? When you model active listening, then, the children will tend to repeat that, all right? Also with the skill of inquiry, looking for patterns. We're going to talk a lot, about patterns and sequences here coming up. But that skill of inquiry is looking for patterns, organizing what they hear. All right, so I told you earlier that children have immature inner speech. They don't have that voice inside of their head, but what they do have are images, all right? And what they have to do is they have to be able to organize those images into a sequence, all right? So we're going to support them with that organization, all right? Organizing what they hear, all right? So again, this is where the questioning is going to be very helpful. You're asking these questions to help them organize what they hear, all right? Also with the skill of inquiry is to make assumptions, to make interpretations, all right? And again, you're going to support their learning by asking them what their interpretation of a scenario is. Something happened in the classroom. What do you think that meant? All right? How do you think Debbie is feeling right now? Why do you think Debbie, threw that block across the room? But that inquiry and asking them for their assumptions or interpretations, all right? And kind of testing them a little bit right there. Testing the children and challenging the children is going to help with the skill of inquiry. And then to evaluate the results, all right? So reflecting, and so you're going to be doing a lot of reflecting with the children when you're engaging them in the classroom. You're going to do that reflecting with them, all right? So you walked over to the art center and picked up a red piece of construction paper and brought it back to the table and colored with a white crayon. Tell me why you chose the red construction paper and the white crayon, all right? So, there you go. So that reflecting is going to be important. When we talk about the skill of inquiry, children are scientists. They are investigators, all right? So get your CSI, mind out right there. And, you're going to be that investigator, and you're going to encourage the children to be the investigators of the classroom. This starts as early as infants, all right? Your newborn infants, the skill of inquiry kicks in, all right? They start becoming curious about the world around them, and you're going to support them with that curiosity. The second category of cognitive skills that we're going to support is knowledge of the physical world, all right? we want the children to be aware of the world around them. We want them to be aware of the world around them, and we want them to be curious about the world around them. So, children use all of their senses to learn about the people and the objects in the world around them. So that's why, of course, in your infant room, everything goes in the mouth. So a baby, picks up and examines a doll using their senses. So when a child picks up a baby doll in the infant room, they look at it, they touch it, and they put it in their mouth. They taste it, all right? So that's that senses, the sensory that we talked about earlier. Knowledge of physical world. A toddler, they're going to pick up and release everything they see, all right, to watch and learn what happens when things are dropped. So, I know that it can be frustrating for a toddler teacher and administrators, directors that are on this webinar. You need to be aware of this when you're evaluating your toddler teachers. They're going to have messy classrooms. All right, a toddler classroom is going to be messy and kind of chaotic from times, because one of the most important activities that a toddler does is dump and fill. Okay, dump and fill. They're going to take every bucket in that classroom that has toys in it. They're going to dump it because they want to examine what happens, and they want to watch and learn what happens when they dump it. And then we're going to coach them and support them in refilling it. And as soon as they get it full, guess what they're going to do again? They're going to dump it, all right? But I know that it appears that they're just making a big old mess. They're actually learning, okay? They're actually learning whenever they're doing this. So there you go. A preschooler rings a series of bells to see what happens and to see which one has the loudest tone. So, again, we're creating that sense of hearing right there. All learning about, the properties of objects and how they work. All right. So the knowledge of the physical world, learning about the properties of objects and how they work. This is all the foundation for cause and effect. All right, it's all the foundation for cause and effect, and we want to support children on cause and effect as much as possible. All right. So Claudia is saying that her older threes do that as well. Sure, yeah, and that's okay. And Claudia, we're gonna circle back to that whenever we get to developmental milestones here in just a little bit, because I don't want y'all at this point to say, well, he said 2-year-olds, he said toddlers, but I got 3-year-olds that are doing this. Does that mean they're delayed? No, it doesn't. All right, but we'll talk about that more when we get to developmental milestones. But if you've got 3-year-olds doing this, they're learning. They're learning. Okay. Something that I didn't mention at the beginning of this webinar that would have been helpful is that, a lot of the material that we're talking about today and the knowledge that we're gaining today is also extremely helpful when you're having conferences or conversations with parents, all right? Because the parents of the children may not necessarily understand cognitive development and why children do what they do and why it's so important. So being able to share a lot of this information with families is very important too, all right? That there is a lot of learning that is taking place when the children are doing these particular things right there, all right? So there you go. So constantly ask questions about the children's world, knowledge of the physical world. Another activity that I encourage you to do is constantly ask children not just about the classroom environment, but ask them very particular questions about their personal environment too, their home environment. Tell me about the blanket that's on your bed. What color is the blanket on your bed? What design or character is on the blanket of your bed? Random questions like, what color is your daddy's car? you know, and they may or may not be able to answer you, but it's going to stick in their head and they're going to pay attention to it when Daddy picks them up this afternoon. Daddy's got a blue car. All right. But we want them to be curious about the world around them, not just in the classroom, but at home too. All right. Hey Claudia, do you remember what color your sister's shirt was that she was wearing this morning? But we want them to be curious about the world around them, and you're going to expand on that. All right. So yeah. Kat is saying that, parents don't understand what is learned through play. Yes, and so that's why, again, that webinar that I have coming up in a couple of months, The Power of Play, I've been doing that particular training for about 12 years now, and every time I do it, I change this or that because we continue to learn new stuff. But that's actually one of my most popular parent workshops that I do. The most popular parent workshops that I have done in the past, of course, is, the 5 steps to self-regulation. Biting is always a very popular parent workshop. But the power of play. And, I actually originally wrote that training to be a parent workshop so that parents would understand the importance and value of play. All right. And again, we're going to talk about play here in just a little bit. The third category of gaining cognitive skills is knowledge of the social world. All right, knowledge of the social world. Yes, absolutely. Any of my webinars you can refer a parent to. I think that's very valuable. And I actually have it on my list of things to do is to record more parent workshops that y'all can share virtually with your families. That's something that I'm planning on doing. If we have to continue to do our professional development virtually, which I think this is going to be the new norm for a while, then I'm probably going to start producing some parent workshops, for people to share as well. So there you go. So anyways, going back to the third category of gaining cognitive skills, knowledge of the social world. All right, so at the same time that children are using all of their senses to learn about the objects in their world, they are also learning about the people who inhabit it. All right, so they're constantly learning about us. So, a newborn child learns to distinguish people that they are familiar with versus those who are strangers. They're very, very attuned to, people that they're familiar with versus who is a stranger. And again, kind of going back to my webinar I did on Thursday, females do this first, all right? So a female infant will be able to distinguish that this is another human or this is someone that is familiar to me versus this is a stranger or this is just loud noise. Females tend to recognize this before males. But that is something when we talk about knowledge of the social world. And anyone that works in an infant room, this to be true, that when someone that the child is familiar with walks in, everything stays calm and routine. When a stranger comes in, so when the director brings in a tour or a brand new employee comes in or an employee that doesn't normally work in the infant room, everyone starts freaking out. All right, stranger danger, stranger danger. So, and this also kind of goes back to something that I have always believed in, is that, children are a lot like dogs. They know when someone is good for them. They know when someone is safe or when someone is danger, all right? They're very attuned to that. And so that's why, whenever I'm doing job interviews, I love taking applicants into the infant room because I want to see, does the infant room remain calm, or when I walk in with an applicant, do all of the infants start crying? All right, that's a really big indicator right there. If everyone starts crying and freaking out, you're probably not going to get hired. All right, because the kids are picking up on something that I'm not. They're very, very smart and very attuned. Again, going back to knowledge of the social world, a toddler can tell you with confidence that anything they pick up belongs to them. All right, y'all know those toddler rules that we've talked about in the past. If I see it, it's mine. If I touch it, it's mine. If I pick it up, it's mine. If I think about it, it's mine. All right. If I played with it last month, it's mine. All right. Those are the toddler rules. But that's actually part of knowledge of the social world, is that toddler being able to confidently tell you that anything they pick up belongs to them. But that's where we have a lot of opportunity to teach. We have a lot of opportunity to share some new skills with those toddlers at that point. That's why, being a toddler teacher, those of you that work in a toddler classroom, such a fascinating age. Such a fascinating age, because there's so much curiosity and there's so much experimenting. There's so much discovery that is happening in those toddler 2-year-old classrooms. Very, very fulfilling for you to observe and reflect on that. All right. Knowledge of the social world, when a 4-year-old can feel empathy for a child who just got hurt and then share a favorite toy without fighting over it first. All right. These are things that we want to support. Children learn how they are alike and different from others and what it means to negotiate with others. All right. Through their knowledge of the social world. And we want to encourage pro-social behavior. All right, we wanted to encourage those conversations with others, that understanding of other people's world, and compromise. All right, compromise. Now, sometimes when I say what I'm about to say, some people, kind of disagree. But I want y'all to kind of think about this right here, especially when we talk about the knowledge of the social world. We tend to use the word friend too loosely, all right? And I don't think we do a good enough job explaining to children what a friend is, all right? And we say, all right, be nice to our friends. All right, go take the toy to your friend. All right, we love all of our friends, and we use that very loosely. Especially when it comes to aggression. So Karen slaps Latasha upside the head. Karen, we don't hit our friends, and Karen's like, I didn't hit my friend. My friends are over there in the home center. I hit her. All right, she's not my friend. She's just another kid in the classroom. So we need to be using the children's actual names. All right, Karen, we don't hit Latasha. All right. We touch her softly, or when we want her attention, we tap her on the shoulder like this. But use their actual name instead of generalizing it into friends. But we tend to use that a little too loosely right there. All right. I'm just kind of reading some of the comments right there. Yes, at the end of today's workshop, I will post a link to complete your worksheet so that you can get your certificate. That was explained at the beginning of the workshop, so whoever was asking that must have missed the beginning of the workshop. All right. So moving on, the fourth category of gaining cognitive skills is going to be classification. All right, classification. Through children's interactions with the physical world, children begin to notice that people and objects have very specific attributes. All right, and we start that form of classification. So for a child, they're going to look that a plum is round, a rug is rectangle, bananas are yellow, beards are prickly. All right, and they're going to start being able to classify these items. Classification is the ability to group, sort, categorize, and connect objects and people by these various characteristics. So that's why, in our early childhood classrooms, we do a lot of activities based on classification. All right, and that's going to be a huge developer of cognitive skills. All right, we want to teach the children to be able to classify objects. So that's a pretty easy one right there. The fifth category of gaining cognitive skills is seriation. All right, and seriation may be defined as the ability to put objects in order based on a particular property of those objects. So size is the most common form of seriation, in which objects are arranged by increasing in size. So you'll see children put some toys from smallest to largest, all right? But it also, may pertain to other attributes such as, the shades of color, the weight of an object, or even the number of objects that are in a classroom. So again, your counting bears or your sorting bears, sorting activities, this is going to be very important for this part of gaining cognitive skills. And I want you to keep in mind, and again, this is something that I've talked about in so many different webinars, but your brain is a pattern-seeking organ, all right? Even as adults, those of you watching this webinar right now, your brain craves patterns, all right? We crave routine, and that's why we stress so much. I have a webinar that I did a couple of months ago. You can go to my website and watch it, on positive guidance and discipline. We talked a lot in that webinar about the importance of routine. Children must have routine. They must have predictability. All right? That predictability that is part of routine is the pattern-seeking part of the brain going, yes, all right? We need it. And even as adults, our routines are very important to us, and that's what makes the brain happy. All right, that's what releases the joy juice. All right, the chemicals that are released from the brain that makes us feel good. Routine is a big joy juice supplier. All right, so as much predictability that you can put in the classroom, the best, especially for children that have signs and symptoms of a special need. All right? But keep that in mind right there. And this is one reason why this past year has been so difficult on, a lot of people. It's because, our routines have been interrupted in a major way. All right? We're really, our routines are messed up, Kids that have been normally coming to our classroom every day are staying home with mom and dad now because mom and dad are working at home, or mom and dad lost their job and their routines have been interrupted. And even us, our routines are different, and it's kind of rocked some people's worlds. So, this is where at the beginning of today's webinar, I really challenged y'all to reflect on a pre- and post-pandemic classroom and how things may or may not change in your classroom. This is one of the big things that I want y'all to reflect on right there. All right? So, yes. Another category in gaining cognitive skills, so this is number 6 right here, are numbers. All right? The concept of numbers involves learning about quantity. All right? So its amount, its degree, and its position. So typically between 8 to 12 months, babies learn that objects still exist even if they cannot be seen. All right? And being able to understand that an object still exists, even when it cannot be seen, is going to be a big supporter of gaining cognitive skills, all right? And especially when we do start talking about numbers and characters, being able to recognize that even though I can't see it, it's still present is going to be very important right there. So, when we talk about, babies learn that objects still exist even when they cannot be seen, what do you think is one of the most important games that you play in your infant classrooms? Peekaboo. All right, y'all, infant toddler teachers, y'all should be playing some form of peekaboo with your children every single day, because that is going to create that abstract thinking. Even in your 3 and 4-year-old classrooms, your 5-year-old classrooms, after school programs, you can still have some form of peekaboo that is age appropriate, that's going to help these kids right there. All right. But a lot of people think that peekaboo is just a childish, fun, interactive game where you get some great facial expressions from the kid, and it's cute, and we take pictures. It's just a fun, cuddly game that we play. It's actually one of the most important games that you can play with your kids for so many reasons. So it's pretty cool right there. All right. And talking about preschool children, building on this understanding, preschoolers start to learn about quantity. This is when they can start counting items and learn that objects are counted in a specific order and counted only once. All right. So when you're doing counting activities with your kids, that we count in a specific order and that you only count things once. And this is going to be a skill that we practice with the children, that we encourage with the children, and that's going to also help gain those cognitive skills right there. Yeah. Valerie saying hide and go seek. That's the older child adult version of peekaboo. Honestly speaking, hide and go seek is that older child adult version of peekaboo. So a very important game. Just make sure that in our world, if you're doing hide and seek, that you do maintain adequate supervision. So y'all know I'm really big on standards and regulations, so I had to throw that out there. The 7th category to gaining cognitive skills are symbols. All right, symbols. So write that down. Symbols stand for something else. When we talk about symbols in early childhood cognition, we are referring to the ability to picture, remember, understand, and replicate objects that are not immediately in front of us. All right, so we're going to expand on the number part of it, and babies learning that objects still exist even when they can't see it. So then when we talk about symbols, we're referring to the ability to picture, remember, understand, and replicate objects that are not immediately in front of us. All right. So y'all might see where we're really building on a lot of the conversation. We talked about the knowledge of the world around us, knowledge of the people that inhabit our world. All right, so as we build on those cognitive skills, being aware of the world around us, being aware of the people that occupy that world, now we're talking about the ability to remember, understand, and replicate objects and people that are not immediately in front of us. So that's, again, where your constant questioning, all right, we're going to constantly question the children and expand on that curiosity, all right, that cause and effect is going to support this cognitive development, all right. So this right here basically involves creating mental images of objects and storing them in our mind for later use. I know I've already said this once. Your early childhood classroom, whether you're infant, toddler, 2-year-old, preschool, pre-K, whatever age group you're working with, should be flooded with real life pictures. All right? And those real life pictures are going to help the child be able to store images in their brain for later use. All right? So we're creating those snapshots. We're creating that photo album that is in the brain. Okay, so that's very important right there. And remember, the younger the child, the bigger the picture. All right? So, if you're in an infant room, your picture should be like 8 by 10. All right? Even toddler rooms, I like 8 by 10, size pictures. And then once you start getting into your 2-year-olds and 3 and 4s, then you can kind of go down to a 5 by 7 or whatnot. But if I walk into an infant room and the picture is like 4 by 6, they can't see that. All right? You're not doing any good right there. So the younger the child, the bigger the picture. So, when we're talking about symbols too, and creating those mental images of objects and storing them in our brain for later use, you see a lot of symbolic thought in toddlers and preschoolers during dramatic play. All right? So again, there's a perception out there that, there's not a lot of importance to dramatic play. When the kids are in the home center and you got the kitchen equipment or the dress-up clothes, what's the importance of dramatic play? It's actually one of the most important learning centers in your classroom, all right? But this is where that symbolic thought is going to come out. And this is a big part of cognitive development, all right? So make sure that you are constantly enhancing your dramatic play area, all right, your home center area, that you're making it inviting for the children, that you're making it curious, that the kids are curious to go play in dramatic play because you've put something new in there. Prop boxes, that you can rotate, week after week or month after month, so that you're changing up the home center or dramatic play area so that the kids are curious about that. But this is really, really critical when it comes to their cognitive development, because that symbolic thought is going to come out right there. So really good stuff on that one. On number 8, the 8th category of gaining cognitive skills is spatial relationships. So understanding the space around us, all right? Now, again, I'm going to refer you to another video that I've done, but I have a video on physical activities in the classroom. And y'all know that we have some new guidelines coming out from child care licensing on physical activities. So, we're going to be expected to enhance our physical activities in our early education classrooms in the very near future. But if you go back and watch that video, I talk a lot about spatial awareness and the ability to understand the space around us and how much space is around us. So, spatial relationships involve mentally determining the position of objects and people in space and how they relate to each other in movement. All right? And this is a skill that we have to practice and encourage with the children. So in an infant program, infants start developing this skill as they reach out for an object and then place it in their mouths. So they reach for an object, they grab it, they pull it back in their mouth. All right? So not only do we have the sensory that is developing cognitive skills, but there's also the spatial relationship of how far do they have to reach to grab it, and how far, what is the distance from the moment that I grab it back to my mouth. All right? When babies start moving, they begin to learn what is nearby. They start to learn what is far away. We also start to learn what is above them, what is below them, what is in front of them, what is behind them. Now here, when you're supporting your children with spatial relationships, again, we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about what is in front of them, what is behind them, what is above them, what is below them. All right, what is nearby? What is far away? And you're going to use these words. All right, this is close, this is far. This is above, this is below. All right, this is in front, this is behind. All right, and the more you talk about this and you use these words and you point this out to the children, the children are gaining that spatial relationship. All right, so there you go. And again, those of you that work in a toddler 2-year-old classroom, you're very, very aware that they are developing spatial relationships, that spatial awareness is difficult for a toddler 2-year-old because they are typically on top of each other. All right, so when you've got children that are on top of each other or bumping into each other or right next to each other, this is your opportunity to share skills to support spatial relationships. All right. And then, what we're shooting for here is by the age of 3, children can use this vocabulary to describe what they are observing. All right. So we're going to reflect on it at that point. The 9th category of gaining cognitive skills, time. All right, and being able to understand the concept of time. All right, so advanced cognitive concepts involve understanding several interlateral dimensions. So we're going to be working with our children and supporting children on understanding present time. All right, this is happening right now at this moment. Past time. So something that has happened in the past. Future time, so we're going to do some predictability. So once again, that importance of predictability to understand future time. And a collection of time. All right, so understanding the collection of time, the sequence and the progression of events. All right, and that's what we're going to work on right there. So I'm going to repeat that. So present time, past time, future time, and the collection, sequence, or progression of time. That's what we're going to support the children on. So again, infants gain a beginning concept of time when their educator flips a light switch on and off to indicate that an activity is ended. All right, that's going to help with that present time. Toddlers and preschoolers learn to understand the sequence of time when they follow a picture-based daily schedule. So again, I'm going back to those real-life pictures and how important real-life pictures are for cognitive development. But when you have a picture-based daily schedule, you're creating that predictability. You're creating those images, that photo album in their mind. But that picture-based daily schedule is creating that collection, sequence, and progression of time. Okay, so good stuff right there. All right, let's talk a little bit now about developmental milestones. As discussed, children are acquiring a dazzling number of cognitive skills from birth to age 5. From a baby sticking out their tongue to indicate that she is hungry, to a 5-year-old experimenting to see how much water yields the ideal growth of beans. Children are developing cognitive power in all of the 9 skills that we just discussed. All right. It is important to remember that milestones are norms, and children develop according to their own individual timetable. In addition, the presence or absence of the following 5 items can all affect development. Okay? And by the way, we haven't had a worksheet question in a while, but you might want to write these 5 things down because you're going to see this on your worksheet. Keep in mind again, milestones are norms, and children develop according to their own individual timetable. All right. but also either the presence or absence of the following can affect development. Number one, nutrition. All right. Is the child getting proper nutrition? Are they eating healthy? Are they drinking enough water? All right. Again, I told you that we've got some new regulations coming out here in Texas on physical activity. We also have new regulations coming out on nutrition. So if you're not familiar with myfoodplate.gov, you might want to check out that website. It's actually an amazing resource for both classroom teachers and families to really help support nutrition with our children, both at our schools and at home. So myfoodplate.gov is what you want to refer to. But nutrition does have an impact on gaining cognitive skills. Healthcare, all right? Is the child getting their basic needs met? So are they getting the health care that they need to develop successfully? A child's temperament, all right? A child's temperament also affects their developmental milestones and their ability to learn, all right? Culture. Culture also has a big impact on the way children learn and the rate that they learn. And then the last one, disabilities. There may or may not be an undiagnosed disability, or like I've mentioned already, in our early education world, we typically see children that have signs and symptoms of a disability that has not been diagnosed yet because they're not old enough and there's not enough indicators to diagnose them just yet. So for your worksheet, again, it's going to ask you the presence or absence of the following can affect development: nutrition, health care, temperament, culture, and disabilities. All right. Now, developmental milestone checklist. You want to have a variety of developmental milestone checklists at your fingertips. Now, your particular school may adopt particular milestone checklist that is specific to your organization. By all means, you want to use what your school has adopted. But if you need to research and find some developmental milestone checklist, the internet is full of them, all right? So you got a lot of opportunity to gain some milestone checklists. My only, recommendation to you is that when you're searching on the internet for age-appropriate developmental milestone checklist, be sure to check your source, all right? Just because it's on the internet doesn't make it accurate, and just because it's on the internet doesn't make it good. So make sure that you're pulling developmental milestone checklists from a reputable source, all right? My recommendation, my favorite website to refer people to is 0 to 3, all right? So, and it's a very easy website, 023.org, spelled out. So ZEROTOTHREE.org. All right, and 0 to 3 has a lot of really good resources for you, but developmental milestone checklists that are very, very appropriate that you can use to do your anecdotal records, to evaluate children to see if they're on task. What skills do we need to support? A little bit more, what skills have children mastered, all right? Now, even when a child masters a skill, you still need to practice it, all right? We never stop practicing our cognitive development, okay? So don't just, once they master it, you don't do it anymore. We want to continue to practice even after mastering, all right? There you go. I'm not going to go over, we don't have time for me to sit here and go over, what you should be looking for each individual age group. That would take us all day long to go through a developmental milestone checklist and for me to share with you, this is what you need to be looking for an infant, this is what you need to be looking for. What I did decide, I'm going to just go over a few developmental concerns, all right? That these are things that you need to be looking for, and you need to be concerned if a child does not do the following. And you definitely want to create activities and support the children and engage the children in some activities if you're not seeing this. So I'm going to go kind of quickly through this because I'm trying to watch our time because I want to make sure that you have enough time today to complete your online worksheet, and this is kind of a bigger one. I'm just going to warn you, it's going to take you a little bit longer to complete your worksheet today than normal, so I'm trying to watch my time. But on a developmental concern for children by 12 months of age, if a child is not searching for hidden objects, all right, so you take one of their favorite toys and you put a blanket over it or a cloth over it, and is the child going and pulling the cloth off, or at least looking for it and trying to figure out where it's at? That should be a concern right there. By 12 months, if they are not using gestures to communicate, so, waving their hand or kicking their feet or sticking their tongue out whenever they're hungry or thirsty, that would be a concern. And if by the age of 12 months a child is not imitating actions or words, that should be a concern. So when you are playing that peekaboo and you're like, where's Mr. Tim? Here I am. And if the child doesn't respond by going, that's a concern. That's what we call mirror neurons. That the child imitates your actions, and we have mirror neurons even in adults. Where we respond to other people's actions. So that's important right there. By 18 months, if you have a child that is not being vocal, all right, vocalizing frequently. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to understand it, but they're making an attempt to be vocal by making different sounds or attempting to make sounds, all right? I would be concerned if they're not vocalizing frequently by 18 months. If they're not pointing or showing you things that are an interest to them. So by 18 months, they should be able to point or gesture to something that they are interested in. So that's an indicator right there. Engaging in social games. So interactive games like patty cake. By 18 months, they should be very interested in those social type games. All right. And then playing with and exploring with a variety of toys. So there should be a lot of dimensions by this point that they are interested in a variety of different things. So I would be concerned if they're not doing these items by 18 months. By 24 months, if a child is not interacting with others during play, all right, by 24 months, by the age of 2, they should have that pro-social behavior, that cooperation and interaction with other children or adults by the age of 2. If they're being a loner and they're wanting to play by themselves, I would be concerned about that, all right? By 2 years of age, they should be able to recognize pictures of familiar objects or people by pointing or naming them. So you should be able to hold up flashcards of real-life pictures of objects or people that are in that child's life, and they should be able to recognize them or name them, all right? So, you're going to need some parent cooperation here, where mom and dad send in some pictures of, people that are in that child's life, or their animal, their pet, or important things to the child, not just in the classroom, but at home. And when you hold these pictures up, the kids should be able to recognize them, point them out, and name them, all right? So I would be concerned if they're not doing that by the age of 2. And also by the age of 2, you should start seeing pretend play. So once again, we talked about the importance of dramatic play. 2-year-old classrooms, toddler 2-year-old classrooms should have a dramatic play center because we want to engage and support that pretend play. All right. By the age of 3, all right, by the age of 3, they should be able to name pictures once again, follow simple directions. So if they can't follow a 1 to 2 part command by the age of 3, I would be concerned. Answer questions about recent experiences, all right? So, you know, in that 2-year-old classroom leading up to the 3-year-old room, after nap time, you need to be asking a lot of questions about the morning activities. So y'all remember, before nap time, we did an activity. Okay, who can remember what activity we did this morning? Tell me about the activity we did this morning. You know, we had such a good time on the playground earlier today. Tell me about your experience on the playground. That we want them to be able to answer questions about recent experiences. And again, engage in that symbolic play. By the time we get to the 4-year-old classroom, all right, if you have a child that has a lack of curiosity or a lack of interest in the world around them, that would be a concern. If they have a difficult time learning new information despite, you know, efforts or repetition, all right, that difficulty learning, I would definitely document this. Difficulty learning a new skill, all right, despite significant practice. Now remember, a child has to practice a skill 2,000 times in context before they can grasp it, all right? But after you've practiced multiple times, you should start seeing indicators that they're getting it. You know, difficult time solving ordinary simple problems, all right? This would be something I would document. Difficult time remembering things, all right? So they can't remember what happened this morning or what happened 5 minutes ago. How many of you are starting to get concerned about yourself and you're like, I'm an adult and some of these things I'm having a hard time with? Yeah. You know, and difficult time meeting educational needs, all right? These are some current concerns that you want to be aware of. All right, let's move on now, and we're going to talk a little bit about learning through play. Oh, I love this topic. So seeing children at play means different things to different people. Most everyone thinks that play is just fun, including children themselves, all right? When asked in one study what their favorite activity was, 98% of children answered play, all right? Because it is so enjoyable, many family members and some educators think fun equals frivolous. Play, in their view, is a distraction from learning, all right? And unfortunately, we have seen this in many public school districts, all right? Especially over the last 20 years, that play is frivolous and it is a distraction from learning. I'm so happy that we are starting to see a lot of public school districts that are reversing their viewpoint on this and understanding, even in the elementary school years, how important play is. All right, so very, very exciting. As more and more research shows the benefit of play, it is once again taking a front seat in early childhood education. Yes, I'm so happy about this. The link between play, especially make-believe play, and academic success has been firmly established. Y'all, there is some amazing research on this right here. All right? Amazing research. And I found this quote from Albert Einstein that I wanted to share with y'all today. And you might want to write this down because I love it so much. It's a worksheet question. So one of your worksheet questions is, what was the quote from Albert Einstein that I shared with y'all? And this is what Mr. Einstein said. Play is the highest form of research. All right? Play is the highest form of research. Isn't that awesome? I love it. I love it. I see Jasmine's comment here that she's telling me that her first grader gets 4 recesses. Awesome! All right, that is so good right there. What do children learn through play takes that makes, or what is it that children learn through play that makes it so important? So why am I so excited about learning through play? All right, play is children's entry to the physical, social, and affective worlds. All right. Moreover, play builds all of the cognitive skills that we have discussed in this training. Everything that we have talked about to this point in this training today, all right, play is going to build those cognitive skills. All right. So awesome. So I'm just going to kind of go really quickly through the different age groups and talk about how you, the adult, can support young children in play. And y'all, I don't think I said this at the beginning of today's workshop. Oops, I made a mistake. I should have said this at the beginning. No matter what age group you work with, it's very, very important to understand the growth and development and the expectations of all of the different age groups. That way you can distinguish, where each individual child is at on their development. So sometimes when, I do activities like this and I say, okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about infants for a moment. And then I see the pre-K teachers go, oh, it's time for me to go to the bathroom, or it's time for me to check my phone because I'm a pre-K teacher and he's going to talk about infants. Y'all still need to pay attention, all right? Because no matter what age group you work with, understanding the development of each age group is very, very critical, all right? And the fact that we want to be cross-trained to support any classroom when needed, all right? So here we go. So when you're supporting infants in play, move colorful objects 10 to 12 inches away from the baby's head. Now, we know that with young infants, their narrow vision, they typically can only see clearly about 12 inches. All right, anything past 12 inches is blurry to them. All right, so colorful objects that are 10 to 12 inches away from the baby's head, we want them to explore and reach for that. Hold a toy or a rattle in each hand and shake it one at a time. So you're going to help the child, hold something in left hand, hold something in right hand, and then you're going to shake the left and then shake the right. And what we want to see is their head move and look at this and then look at left, look at right, look at left. All right. We talked earlier in the webinar, this seems like hours ago, but we talked earlier in the webinar about making the brain more flexible and more lateral so that the child will have the ability to shift from left brain to right brain development. This rattle over here and over here, crossing that midline and moving their vision is going to help that. Offering a baby 2 toys to hold and decide which one they prefer. Introducing stimulation slowly, so a lot of music, in your infant program, classical music with instruments, so awesome for those babies. Something else that I always encourage infant teachers to do in their classrooms, poetry. All right, find some age-appropriate poetry that you can recite to your infants. This is actually mind-blowing how helpful this is to gaining that cognitive development. All right, showing children how things work and explaining to them how things work. We've already talked about, the interactive games like peekaboo, all right? So important right there. Singing and dancing, together, all right? Those of you working in an infant room, sing, sing, sing. And this is not American Preschool Idol, all right? The children are not going to judge you or vote you off the island when you can't sing. They don't care, all right? So sing your heart out to those kids. Age-appropriate music, all right? Age appropriate. And, you know, take a ball and roll a ball back and forth to a child. Or once they become mobile, you know, get them interested in a ball and roll it and have them follow the ball, kind of like playing fetch with a puppy, all right? But we're doing it with the infant. Your mobile infants, once they are mobile, make sure you've got duplicates of favorite toys. We are just now introducing the concept of sharing, the concept of cooperation. And remember that toddler law that we talked about earlier. If I see it, it's mine. If I touch it, it's mine. If I know it's present, it's mine. That's the toddler law. So having those duplicate toys is going to be helpful in the mobile infant toddler classroom as we're supporting those skills of cooperation and sharing. Reading books together, singing and dancing once again. Let children see how things work, and again, you're going to describe it. Show children how to combine objects. So y'all may notice with a lot of your manipulatives that you have in your classroom, there's the Lego blocks or the blocks that connect together, the rings that connect together. This is showing children how objects can be combined. This is actually a really important skill. And remember again, offer as much repetition as possible. Supporting your children in play is that repetition, all right? Lots of repetition, that predictability. For your toddlers, okay, this is again, you know, those of you that are toddler teachers, y'all have such an amazing group, all right? I hope those of you that are toddler teachers have so much fun with your career. But you know, one of the best things that you can do in a toddler classroom is to follow their lead. All right? Let the children be the leaders and you follow their lead. All right? This is going to build so much self-confidence and worth in the classroom. Create a marching band with drums and instruments, and you're marching along right there with the kids. Encourage pretend play. All right, offer quiet play opportunities. While they're very, very active, we need to offer that quiet opportunity too, so that the brain can rest. All right, musical games, finger games, and invite toddlers to join in with other children. All right, so we want to encourage that pro-social behavior by inviting them into other groups. So for your preschoolers, you know, at this age, children need ample, uninterrupted choice or free play throughout the day to develop their memory, their attention, and their self-regulation. Now, when I say choice or free play, that doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all, all right? That you're just going to open up the classroom and just go play with something. That's not what I'm talking about. All right, uninterrupted choice or free play. You can go to the Block Center and build roads and bridges, or you can go to the Art Center and paint with feathers, or you can go to manipulatives and play with gears. Which choice works best for you? But you want to provide them multiple different options, all right? That's going to create routine. It's going to create predictability, all right? And allow them an adequate amount of time to have that uninterrupted choice time. So again, this is going to help with memory, attention, and self-regulation skills. Also, because brain connections are hardwired through repetition, extended and uninterrupted play gives children the chance to make cognitive connections repeatedly. All right? So we've talked about that quite a bit. While children are at play, observe and scaffold their learning by stepping in intentionally when appropriate. So when you see an opportunity to support, you see an opportunity to engage, you see an opportunity to redirect, all right, then you step in an intentional way, all right? Model that curiosity and encourage children to ask questions and to answer questions, ask and answer questions that will help them learn. So that's what you're going to do with your preschoolers. All right. There's two things left that we need to talk about before I let you loose to do your worksheet. But let's talk a little bit about executive functions, all right? And pay close attention here because there is a worksheet question coming up. Executive functions is an umbrella term that encompasses a number of cognitive skills, including self-control, memory, and attention. All right? So one of your worksheet questions is going to be, what is the definition of executive functions, or to describe executive functions? So executive function skills are mental processes that enable us to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. All right? So I'm going to say that again. Executive functions are skills, or executive function skills are mental processes that enable us to plan, to focus attention, to remember instructions, and to juggle multiple tasks successfully. All right? And this is all happening in your prefrontal lobes, which is right up here in the brain. Your executive function skills are in your prefrontal lobes. Now, an important thing to remember about executive function skills: your prefrontal lobes are not fully developed until the age of 24. All right? Your prefrontal lobes are developing all the way up until the age of 24. So that's why understanding executive function skills are so important. All right? And understanding that it takes 24 years for these to develop. 24 years for you to be able to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple things successfully. It takes 24 years to get that down. Okay? You're going to be understanding that. You're going to be more patient with your children. You're going to be more understanding of your children. You're going to be more supportive of your children when supporting executive function skills. All right? You can't expect a toddler to be a 24-year-old. All right? So be patient with them. One of the most interesting things about executive functions is that it doesn't develop on its own. All right? There needs to be supportive experiences to develop these skills. All right? So while at the beginning of today's webinar, we talked about, children are born craving to learn. All right? And that remains true. Children are born craving to learn. But in order for them to develop their executive functions, they have to have those supportive experiences to develop that. All right? And so that's what you want to keep in mind right here. So again, everything we've talked about, the 9 categories of gaining cognitive skills, the importance of play, the importance of understanding developmental milestones, all of this is building up to supporting those executive function skills. All right. Now, I told y'all earlier, I do a lot of training, a lot of conscious discipline trainings. I'm a certified instructor for conscious discipline. One thing we talk about a lot in conscious discipline is the brain model, that we have our executive function, we have our limbic system, we have our brain stem. Our prefrontal lobes are our executive skills. This is where we learn. This is where we can solve problems. This is where we can cooperate. When the world doesn't go our way, we downshift into our limbic system, which is our emotional state. All right. And, you know, again, those of you that participated in my training on Thursday on how boys and girls learn different, the female brain idles in the limbic system quite a bit, all right, in that emotional state. And then when you get triggered, you downshift into your brain stem. And your brain stem is your survival part of your brain, all right? The only thing you can do when you're in your survival state is fight or flight, all right? But again, that's a whole nother workshop. I just wanted to give you a little preview of that right there. Okay, and if you're interested in me coming out to your program to do a conscious discipline training, if you visit my website, timthetrainer.com, there is a particular link for conscious discipline. That is something that has to be booked totally separate from everything else that I do, but you can learn more information about that. All right. Now, self-regulation. Self-regulation, I already mentioned earlier that self-regulation or self-control is a cognitive skill that has been diminishing over the years, all right? So a lot of children, a lot of adults are losing their ability to self-regulate, all right? Why is there a steep decline in self-regulation skills? You know, I want y'all to really think about this and reflect on this. Why is there a steep decline in self-regulation skill? Well, the answer seems to lie in changes in the way children play. Okay, now again, this is a worksheet question for you. Okay, so you might want to write this down. Why has there been such a steep decline in self-regulation skills? Okay, the answer seems to lie in changes in the way children play. Y'all, when I was getting ready for today's workshop, and I was compiling all of my notes and putting everything in order, I really started having some flashbacks and really started remembering my own childhood, and even started kind of doing a comparison to my childhood versus my two children. I've got two children myself. They're 24 and 25 years old now, but you know, I started thinking about my own childhood versus their childhood. And then started thinking about my nieces that I have now, you know, and their childhood and what their childhood is looking like, you know, and it really kind of put all of this into perspective right here. And I hope that y'all reflect on this material as much as I did when I was putting this together. But, you know, in early years when a lot of us were growing up and when our parents were growing up, children played freely, using their own imaginations. Children made up their own scripts, they made up their own rules, and they regulated play themselves, all right? They developed their own executive functions, all right? Because children were allowed to go outside safely without adult supervision, and we went outside and we explored, and we created our own scenarios, and we created our own games, and we played freely, all right? And by doing this, we were able to develop those executive functions that allowed self-regulation, all right? So, you know, there you go. Now, let's talk about some of the factors that have changed in play. I see a question on Facebook Live about, do you have to pass the worksheet? Here's a beautiful thing, Linda. If you're missing any of this information today, this is all being recorded. So you can go back to Facebook and you can watch the recorded video if you missed any of the information today. And I will have this video posted on my website later on today. So if you feel like you have missed some of the information, you have a beautiful opportunity to go back and view it again, or to rewind to what you feel like you've missed. So there you go. But to answer your questions, your worksheet does need to reflect the material being discussed today. And if your worksheet does not reflect the material that is discussed today, it will be rejected, all right? Or I will ask you to make corrections, all right? But that's the reason why I record these. That's the reason why it's available on both Facebook and on my website, so that you can go back and collect anything that you might have missed, all right? So let's get back to factors that have changed play, all right? Children are not playing outside, okay? They're not playing outside anymore. Or they're having very limited outside time because they're having to be supervised by an adult. And because the adult doesn't have that much time or interest in going outside, then it is limiting the children's opportunities for outdoor play. All right? And instead of playing freely, where you're just jumping on your bicycle and going like we did when we were kids, what we're seeing is that when children are playing outside, they're involved in more structured activities such as soccer or baseball or art classes or dance. And while all of those things are awesome, they're structured. So, you know, when you enroll a child in an art class, or you register a child for soccer or pee-wee baseball, all right, we're telling them how to play. And so they're missing those executive function skills at that point, because they're not developing everything on their own, all right? That exploration and creativity is not there, all right? The other factor that has changed play is that many popular toys are linked to television or film, and that is limiting the child's imagination. So, you know, when they get their action figures or they get their baby dolls that are based on a television show or a film, then the child is basically, when they play, they are reproducing what they have seen on an image, all right? They are reproducing scenarios that they've seen in the movie or they've seen on the television show. They're not being creative and coming up with their own scenarios. They're not coming up with their own characters, all right? So that also is limiting the executive functions that we're seeing right there. So, with that being said, when you're supporting your children in their cognitive development, we want to encourage them to play freely, all right, to come up with their own games, their own characters, their own scenarios, you know, right there. So, to sum everything up, you know, we have a lot of opportunities to support children with cognitive development. Throughout the entire day, I want you to really think about your day and all of the opportunities that we have to support children's cognitive development. We talked about the importance of choice time, all right, or free play, if that's what you want to call it. Transitions from one activity to another and incorporating you know, the cause and effect, the predictability, all right, in those transitions. Feeding time, so those of you in an infant classroom, that opportunity to have that intimate interaction with the child while feeding, or even diapering and helping them in the bathroom, all right? Meal time, so snack and lunch time is a great opportunity for the pro-social development right there. And we talked about nutrition, we talked about cause and effect, we talked about spatial awareness. All of this can be incorporated in snack and meal time. Nap time, sleeping time, so that allows that quiet time for the brain to rest. Arrival and departure, all right? Those caring and loving relationships that they have with adults, and that ability to separate, all right? And you reflecting on that, that's important right there. Walking around and exploring on your playground, you know, field trips, once we're able to start doing that again, that are age appropriate for the children. And the most important opportunity in the day that you have to support cognitive development are teachable, spontaneous moments. And I want y'all to really learn to appreciate and value those spontaneous, teachable moments, those unplanned moments in the classroom that give you a great opportunity to teach. All right? That is pretty awesome right there. All right, so that was a lot of information, a lot of really good information too. I'm glad that Linda brought this up. That again, it was a lot of information. I understand it was a lot of information in a short amount of time. So again, right here on Facebook or on my website, you can go back and rewatch any part of this video. I noticed a lot of people that came in late. So those of you that popped in late, please go back and watch the beginning of this video. That's going to be very important for you too. All right, on Facebook there is a link that you will click on to complete your online worksheet. I will also post it in the chat screen here in just a minute after we are done. If you are paying for your certificate with a credit card, you're going to click on the link that says online worksheet paying with a credit card. If your school has an online account with me and you have been given a 5-digit account number by your school director, then you will click on online worksheet paying with an online account number. All right. If you don't have an online account number, don't click on that one. You're going to click on online worksheet paying with a credit card. All right. And like I said, it's going to take you a little bit of time to complete your worksheet today because there's some good information on there and I really want y'all to reflect on it. So I had planned on about 2 hours and 15 minutes of material and we are right on track. All right. All right, fantastic, everyone. I sure do appreciate all of you and the job that you do. I hope that this was helpful information. I hope that this information today was encouraging to you and motivating to you so that you will understand that this is not a job, this is a purpose, all right? That this is a career and you have such an important job working with these kids and laying the foundation for all of their future learning and success. You are very, very, very special, and I appreciate all of you so much. And I just got to say it, thank you for your grit, thank you for your determination, thank you for your dedication. This past year has been tough, all right? You've stuck with it, and you're still here. And you're going to continue to be here, and I appreciate that so very much. All right? All right, fantastic, everyone. Know that I am always here for you. Call us, email us if you need anything. Lots of information on my website. Be sure to visit my website, timthetrainer.com. I hope to see you at a future teacher and director workshop. My schedule is on my website. Be sure to check it out. Also, make sure that you follow me on Facebook. A lot of communication is done on Facebook, so make sure you stay on top of that. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. If you do get winter weather where you're at, be safe, all right? Make safe and healthy choices, and I will see all of you very, very soon. Thank you.